A muscle car masterclass, record-breaking performance, a once-in-a-generation icon. It all started as a byproduct of the legendary horsepower wars of the 60s. It then disappeared for over 30 years, only to fail to resurrect itself in 2007. But, like its name implies, this fallen angel escaped the inferno once again, and with it, brought some of the most sinister tarmac domination the world had ever seen. It is, of course, the Dodge Demon, and this is the death of a legend. Let's go! 717 horses, 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds, and a supercharger that has more displacement than the entire engine in your friend's Hot Bomb's Honda CRV. It's hard to imagine something more badass than a Challenger Hellcat. Big ol' supercharged 6.2-liter HEMI delivering a massive 717 horsepower and 656 foot-pounds of twist. A quarter mile in a tick over 11 seconds, a top speed of 199, and mentioned in over 3,100 hip-hop and pop songs. The Hellcat quickly became a legend on the road. But hell, this cat wasn't enough for the Mopar boys. And yeah, it came with two key fobs, a black one that limits the engine to 500 horsepower for valet use, and a red one that unleashes all 700 plus horses. Well, first, you are crazy, because 700 is already way too much for basically anyone. But this extra spicy concoction is the Hellcat on steroids, a demonic recipe cooked up to be the fastest, most badass quarter-mile production car in existence. And no, we're not talking about the already even more bonkers Hellcat Red Eye. This version has so much power, it's capable of lifting the front wheels at launch. I mean, the Dodge Demon is possibly the only car in existence to fully live up to the diabolical feats that its name implies. And though it undoubtedly demands your attention, I mean, just look at it. One could easily write this off as simply an aggressively tuned Hellcat, but truth is, the Demon makes the Hellcat look like a hell kitten, because the Demon has accomplished so much more than the Hellcat ever could. In fact, the Demon may have more firsts than any other car in automotive history, and you will always remember your first. It's the world's first production car to do a wheelie, the first to have a trans brake from the factory, the first to have factory drag radials. It's also the first to use the AC system to cool the intercooler, drag-specific suspension, and the first car designed to run on 100 plus high-octane fuel. It also has the largest hood scoop, called the air grabber, of any production car ever. Jesus, I thought those Mopar guys were only about Mopower. Turns out they're some of the most clever engineers in the world. God bless America. All that work culminated into what's the world's fastest quarter-mile production car in history at a blistering 9.65 motherfucking seconds at 140 miles per. And what is now the coolest media advertisement ever. The Demon was actually banned by the NHRA for being too goddamn fast. Well, anything faster than 10 seconds requires an NHRA-approved roll cage, and the Demon don't got one because Dodge expects you to die like a man if you get it down the track that fast. But like many of you may be asking, what is the Demon really? Is this both the first and last Demon to exist? Well, it may be the last, but it most certainly wasn't the first.
The Demon story begins actually before the car was ever even conceptualized. You see, the late 60s saw virtually all American automakers grasping for straight-line performance. It was an age where the sheer size of the engine in your car actually equated to a portion of your social currency. We got cars like the Mustang Boss 429, Camaro ZL1, Olds 442, Chevelle SS 454, and countless others. But one stood above all at the proving grounds of the drag strip, the 1968 LO23 Dodge Dart HEMI. It had a 425 horsepower 7-liter HEMI V8, a 4-speed manual transmission, and every drag racing goodie you could want stuffed into the small and lightweight dark body.
And it could run mid-10s in the quarter mile in 1968. That's actually quicker than a C8 Corvette, folks.
No one could touch the HEMI Dart for power to weight in the late 60s. It was king.
Well, until it was canceled after just 60 examples were made due to political pressures like emissions regulations and expensive insurance premiums.
Whatever. The LO23 HEMI was the fastest, nastiest muscle car on the block, and it was originally issued with a disclaimer that it was only to be used for drag racing or supervised acceleration trials. Unlike the regular Dart, these cars were shipped to Hurst as bare bodies. Hurst would then install the specially built engine after literally taking a sledgehammer to the shock towers to make room, bolt on the fiberglass fenders and acid-dipped doors, and thin-gauged bumpers, finishing things off with Chemcore side windows and a pair of fixed bucket seats out of an A100 van. It was shockingly fast. It truly was a race car that could technically be used on the road.
But, like I said, thanks to things like looming emissions requirements and the fact that, simply put, it wasn't really a car most people wanted to live with every day. I mean, guys, it didn't even have a heater or a radio or a single ounce of sound in it.
If Dodge was going to stay at the top of the pack in the muscle car game, Dodge was going to have to get creative and sell something that was slightly more palatable for the general public.
Now, if you think this 1971 Dodge Challenger is hot, you're right. But it offers more than just a pile of muscle. The Dodge boys put a lot of engineering know-how into this one, and it paid off in just about every department.
In 1971, out came the Dodge Demon 340. It was based on the Dart, but toned down a little from the Dart HEMI because everyone was scared of it. But make no mistake, it was still primed for the drag strip, like the name implies. It had Chrysler's 275 horsepower 340 V8, but it also had many of the nifty drag racing goodies that the HEMI Dart had, like bigger brakes, optional tachometers, tuned suspension, and a floor-shifted manual transmission. It was still a very fast car at the time and proved to be one of the last beacons of muscle car hope in the early 70s. And I say that because the Demon was canceled just 2 years into production, and its downfall was actually the name itself. The word demon was actually too blasphemous for religious folks to say out loud, and since a large number of American buyers were good Christians, it was GG's for the evil demon. The whole satanic panic, coupled with the oil crisis, officially killed the car in 1972. It would go dark for more than 30 years before we ever saw the demon name come back. But when it finally did, you probably would have never guessed how. American companies were in a super tough spot in the 90s and early 2000s. Germany was truly dominating the upscale sedan market, and Japan had a lock on smaller, driver-oriented sports cars. For Dodge, it was the latter that inspired the second coming of the Demon. And prepared to be shocked? Are you sitting down? Bam! This is the Demon concept that actually never made it. You see, this small 2-seat sports car was supposed to combat cars like the Mazda Miata and Honda S2000, cars that weren't concerned with straight-line speed at all. I mean, they had the Viper as their halo, but it was too fast and too expensive to sell in any real numbers. The suits wanted something they could price more aggressively and get into more people's garages, aka a baby Viper. Something that had big attitude and a smaller price. And in 2007, they released this concept car and slapped the Demon moniker on the back. It was a naturally aspirated version of the 2.4-liter taken from the Neon SRT4 that made around 175 horsepower. It also had a 6-speed manual, rear-wheel drive, and muscular good looks. It was truly the American Miata, and almost the answer to anything. Well, that is if we choose to completely ignore GM's Miata badges as the Pontiac Solstice and Saturn Sky, but those are cars for another time. At the time, the car would have fit perfectly into Dodge's lineup. There was the top-of-the-line sports car in the Viper, then the big body Challenger muscle coupe in the middle, which was planned to release the following year. And then, if it actually happened, the Demon would be the entry-level backroad carving sports car that would take on the best from Japan. And to Dodge's credit, they pushed hard for this thing to see the production line. They even got a Chinese auto company to help with the funds and development in an attempt to sway the Daimler Chrysler execs. But the suits were too stuffy and uninterested. Classic. In the end, it would never see anything outside the cold, air-cooled venue of the 2007 Geneva Motor Show, which is a shame. And once again, the Demon was damned back to the underworld, where it would remain for another long decade. Fast forward. It's 2018. Dodge has been riding the Hellcat train for over 3 years now, taking that 700 plus horsepower all the way to the bank. But other companies are starting to catch up. Ford has the new GT350 with that savage Voodoo V8. Oh, that sounds incredible. And was rearing to release the threatening GT500. Chevy also released the Camaro ZL1 1LE, which has come within spitting distance to the Hellcat with its 650 supercharged horsepower, and it took it to school on the track. And it was at this point that Dodge moved the goalposts completely out of reach of really anyone. And they did it with the third coming of the Demon. This time, it was really happening, and it was doing it with 840 screaming horses. This hellspawn came out of the gates with no reservations, no regrets, and technically no passenger seat? Yeah, the Demon's factory passenger seat delete option was another first in the world. And even though you could opt for a second seat if you wanted to, for, get this, $1, that wasn't even close to the true insanity of this car. For starters, with an added charge of $1, yes, like the one that you could order off the dollar menu, Dodge threw in a literal crate of racing gear, including all this stuff you'll see on screen, so you might want to pause because there's a ton of cool shit in there. That's a lot for $1. And did I mention that the supercharger in this version had a displacement of 2.7 liters? Yeah, that's bigger than most economy cars' engines entirely, just in a supercharger. And with all 840 horses, the drag radials, and other insane additions, this car did more than just set a bunch of firsts, it set a bunch of records, too. First off, the 6.2 liter V8 had the highest specific output of any production V8 of all time. And because of that, it was the single fastest 0 to 60 production car ever that wasn't an EV. Oh, and it was also the fastest quarter-mile car of all time, doing 1,320 feet in just 9.65 seconds. As you know, that got it banned from the NHRA. It produced more acceleration G-force than any other car, had the largest hood scoop of any car, and braked both harder and faster than the Viper ACR, which was the previous record holder. This car took no prisoners and left absolutely no hope for its competition. The SRT engineers had turned the brute force sport of drag racing into a delicate art form with this baby. They shaved off over 200 pounds from the base car, offered skinny front drag wheels for the real hardcore drivers, and spent months and months on the suspension tuning alone. It was a car with both big numbers and small details that created a satanic masterpiece. In fact, one such detail can be seen on the rear window, where a little demon is doing a smoky burnout. Hell yeah! And just like that, our story ends with the... I'm just kidding, it's Demon 170 time, baby! Rawr! 1,025 horsepower, 945 foot-pounds of twist, and carbon fiber wheels. This ridiculous example of excess actually broke its own records, becoming, once again, the quickest 0 to 60 car with an alien time of just 1.66 seconds, and reclaimed the quarter-mile record with an 8.91 second pass. A series of feats that Dodge actually called, and I just quote, holy shit levels of performance! And fun fact, if you were an original 2018 Demon owner and you wanted the new 170 version, Dodge has pledged to match your original VIN number to your new car. 2 cars, 1 VIN? What? Okay, this is why I freaking love the guys from Dodge. I mean, they are outside of their minds in the best way possible. It's gonna make me cry. But even the craziest, most outside-of-the-box companies have to come back down to earth. Eventually. After 2018, the SRT Demon ended, and after 2023, the 170 ended as well. And over the last year, Dodge has made it clear that smaller turbo engines and electric motors are going to dominate even the most performance-oriented corners of its lineup, and leave the big flaming V8s to the history books. This epic story of the Demon probably won't be saved by another more powerful variant like the 170 did last time, and the final chapters of this book may have been written and read. After more than 50 years of history, including a 1960s horsepower war, a Miata competitor concept, and a muscle car that broke its own world records, the Demon is once again 6 feet under. Some legends are born not to last, but to change the game forever. Dodge engineers had a dream of creating a no-nonsense vehicle that could dominate the drag strip straight from the showroom in the 1960s, and rekindled that emotion by building a modern muscle car. So thrilling, so extraordinary, at a time when there was a horsepower war among manufacturers and the public obsessed with speed and power. The next time you lay your eyes on a Demon, you'll see and hear the fact that you're not looking at the status quo. When it takes to the streets, it does more than just run. It haunts the asphalt. Every green light is a gateway. Every drag strip a battlefield where it showcases its terrifyingly quick 0 to 60 sprint just 2.3 seconds. The new Charger is getting a turbo 6-cylinder to maximize horsepower and efficiency. The Charger Daytona is an EV. But today, the combustion-fueled horsepower battles between OEMs is officially in the past. And yes, maybe this new trick tech, especially as time goes on and more advancements are made, get you across the finish line faster, but what you can't put a number on is the sound and sensory experience, the emotional and mechanical connection, the cold start that pisses off your neighbors every day, pinning the pedal to the red line, a car that your buddy can't ride shotgun in, and a host of extras that you can buy off the dollar menu. That, my friends, is a demon in the City of Angels. That is the Dodge definition of a demon, and another legend that we have lost to Father Time. So, all I ask, like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell if you enjoyed this content, and share your Dodge Challenger, Hellcat, and Demon stories in the comments below. Also, check out our playlist on the death of a legend up here, or whatever YouTube recommends you watch down here. I'm Brad, this is I.